topic is this area of. A parallelogram. Anybody in the 7th grade, is there anybody out there that can tell me what a parallelogram is? In exact mathematical words, Logan, it is a
shape.
not necessarily, it's a special kind of shape. What type of shape is it?
A shape that has no openings.
Well, that's any polygon. I want parallelogram. A parallelogram has to be what specific, based on its sides, what type of shape is every parallelogram? Taylor?
Has a set of two sets of parallel lines.
It does, that's the definition, but I need to know what type of polygon a parallelogram is. How many sides does every parallelogram have, and what do we call shapes that have that many sides? 2 sets of parallel lines means it has how many sides, every parallelogram? Julia?
It's 4 sides, so it's a rectangle.
That's not our name for 4-sided shapes. A rectangle is one of the 4-sided shapes, but it is a
Quadrilateral.
Thank you very much. We are talking about a quadrilateral. The quadrilateral? I need the spelling of a quadrilateral, people. Help me out here.
Quadrilateral.
You know what I do when I can't spell it? I abbreviate. Quad with 2 sets of parallel sides. Now, if you're looking at the exact definition of a quadrilateral, 2 sets of parallel sides, how many different type looking shapes can we get? One of them is what, did Julia say it? This, yes, is a quadrilateral. It is a rectangle. You could have a square for a quadrilateral. For a parallelogram, I'm sorry. Usually though, when we think of a quadrilateral, what shape do we think of? Anybody? Usually a quadrilateral we think of as like this. That's the general shape we think of when we think of a parallelogram. These are also parallelograms, specific types of them, but this is what we think of. Now, does anybody know what the formula for, well, let's look. If you have a rectangle, what's the formula for a rectangle? It's a pretty simple one. Maggie, it's a length times width, isn't it? Rectangles equal length times width. The formula for the area of a square, the most simple one you'll find in math books is, since squares have all equal sides, Logan?
Length times shape.
Not usually. When you see a square, I mean, that'll work, but that's not usually. The way they write it in books is, Taylor?
Side times side.
Which we write as s squared, side squared. And the formula for the area of a parallelogram, which works for all 3, is this, children. Area equals BH, which stands for, Ryan?
Base times height.
Exactly. Area equals base times height. And when you see base times height, in your mind, something should click that says what? Does anybody know? When else do we see base? When we do triangles, area equals 1/2 base times height. And what do we say? When you use the word base and height, children, in a formula, oop, the slope is this here, quiet down. Come on, people, work with me. Triangles, base and height, base and height. Let's get this done so we can move on to new and more exciting things. Caleb?
It should be perpendicular.
Exactly. when you look at the words base and height, when they're in formulas, base and height have to be perpendicular. Just like with a triangle, same thing with this parallelogram. So if I were to give you these dimensions for this parallelogram, let's say this side is 8 and this side is 10, what is the area of that parallelogram? Doesn't get any easier than that. Shellhammer says,
We don't know 'cause it's
whew, thank you very much. Put her to the test. There are no perpendicular lines here. So when you're given a parallelogram, the book is going to have to either do this. It'll give you a dashed line going like this, and maybe it'll say it's 7. Or quite possibly it could extend this line here and give you an extend line here. But you will see there has to be a line that has a square corner on it at some place. Okay, so the area of this parallelogram is, Maggie? 70, because the base is this, which is 10, and the height is that, which is 7. The two lines are in the right angles. So 70 is the area, square units, whatever it is. Inches squared, centimeters squared, whatever squared. Now, that also works for these, but in the case of a rectangle, you've already got right angles here. You've already got right angles there. So that's why it's just length times width, because it's already there. Side times side, there are already those squared, there are already those shapes there. Oh yeah, so take a look at page 408 in your books, please, with me just for a second. You see example number whatever it is there, that's the second one that has the grid. So please note, when you are asked to graph a parallelogram and find its area, for example there, 2 comma 1, 1, 2 comma 1, 1 negative 1, 1 negative 1, negative 2 negative 1, negative 2 negative 1, and the other one is negative 1 positive 1. Okay, if you're asked to graph this and they ask you to find the area of that, can you do it or not? Sure you can. You just have to remember that on a grid, you're given all sorts of perpendicular lines. Okay? You just need to think like this. Okay? I don't see any perpendicular lines on my thing, but I sure can draw one right here. This line right here is certainly perpendicular to that line there. I can count the spaces for how wide this parallelogram is, which is how wide? 1, 2, 3. And I can count the spaces right here for how high this parallelogram is, which is how many high? 2. So those are the two things that I can multiply together. Base times height is 3 times 2, which is 6. So this thing is, anytime you're given a grid, you should be able to draw your own perpendicular lines. And then please note, on this particular problem there, they said there's a dilation, and we've had these issues before in 7th grade math. If there's a dilation of 2, how does that change my points? If this point here was 2 comma 1, what's my new point going to be with a dilation of 2? Multiply them both by 2, it is, my new point will be 4 comma 2. 2, 3, 1, 2. New point's going to be there. Same thing with this. If this is 1, negative 1, my new point is going to be 2 comma negative 2. So here's 2, negative 2. My new parallelogram is going to look something like that when we get done with it. And you will draw it up. And you'll be excited about it. And everybody